Hey!
Hi, guys!
Hello!
Everybody,
Hello.
welcome to the Welcome In and our Highlight Heroes show.
Yeah, it's our
This-
4th episode.
Oh my god. That means 2 months of doing this, Parker.
I know.
2 months.
You've
2
made
months,
so much
and we're
progress on the bin.
dressing the same now. What do you think?
I know, yeah. Okay, I picked, for chat and everybody else, I picked a flannel that I haven't worn on the stream yet because I was like, then I won't match Josh. And then I got on this call and was like, dang it. I was
Aw.
wrong.
So
You two are mind melding.
yeah, it's scary.
We're the same person.
It's frightening. So today's highlight hero features the fantastic and amazing Bluebluebutton. But do you want to do a quick
Yeah.
plug for your social and all that jazz?
Sure. Hi, my name's Button, and I am Blue Button, the color, and then the object on TikTok and Instagram. That's about it. I think I'm Blue Buttons plural on here because someone took my name.
Oh no.
Dude.
Thief.
Nude.
Gee.
So,
my
awesome. We are excited. We're going to get into the questions soon, but first, a few announcements. For those of you who haven't heard me say this 100 times before, we support the Black Lives Matters movement here at the Welcome Inn, and we are asking folks to put their well-earned money towards donations to those, oh my god, I'm forgetting words.
Charities.
Thank you.
Organizations.
Organizations or charities using the big yellow donate button that is on our page if you so see fit. Clicking through will bring you to a list of charities that are still accepting donations. It would be awesome if you guys would do that. We really appreciate it. Parker, scheduling.
So, our weekend is pretty full. So on Friday, we'll be here for Rolling Tides at their regular time at 7 p.m. Eastern. Then Saturday at our very new time for Conundrum Company, it will be 6 p.m. Eastern there. And then on Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern as well, we have Cosplay Ground, our second episode of Cosplay Ground, which is a lot of fun. For anybody that doesn't know, it's a one-shot series that we're doing where we get cosplayers to come on and play, and you guys can see the characters in real time. I dragged Josh along to DM this one, so it'll be fun.
We're doing a dwarven eldritch horror adventure.
Yeah, because nobody thought dwarves would happen when I gave Josh
Yeah.
free reign for a one-shot.
And I completely spaced this on Button's introduction, but Button plays the fantastic, phenomenal, and amazing Peach on Saturday's Conundrum Company campaign.
Yeah.
Each. They're a thembo.
They're them both.
That's true. That's been
I
established.
love
now.
them though.
So
So-
good. They're
They're
so
so good.
soft and yet powerful and brilliant. Ugh.
Peach's one-liners.
Yep.
Peach's one-liners get me so well because they're just out of nowhere.
So,
they have a switch.
y'all
They
will have to
do.
bear with us because we've all been playing D&D pretty much every week together now for like 4 months.
Oh my gosh.
Someone left us on a cliffhanger.
Oh
Who?
yeah, no, we want to talk about some bitter.
Who would
You
do
wanna-
that to you?
Who would do that?
Five
Who would do that?
People.
Who
Who would do
would?
that?
Gosh.
I wonder. Josh would do that.
But first,
Josh would do that.
let's not talk about that. Let's talk about mini painting.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Ah.
So, Button, tell us, what is your mini painting experience, and what are you painting today?
I have no mini painting experience. I'm not an artist. I don't paint. But today I am painting a Dark Heaven Bones Reaper. He's got this little shovel. My camera won't focus on it. Excuse you.
That's
Rude.
like 90% of this show is camera not.
It's like,
It won't focus. But yeah, I'm painting a little Reaper. I'm starting with a shovel because it's easy. If I screw up, it's just a screwed up shovel.
sure.
So you're gonna do how are you gonna do the colors on that shovel? You got like a gray or something like that?
Yep, I have a gray and browns opened because I think I want it to be rusty. It's a rusty shovel.
Oh, I love that. So a little tip for doing like just really, really basic rust is to really, really water down those brown paints and basically coat the whole thing where you think the rust would congregate, kind of dab it in there, like get it like crazy wet. And then kind of dab it in there, and it should congregate, give you some of that kind of rust look to it. Just using like basic paint, Don't even need a wash for that. That's awesome.
All right.
Okay. Well, what are you painting, Parker?
I'm still painting my little guy from last time. It's little elven archer deal.
So cool.
Amazing.
But yeah, hoping to paint more than the brown and red.
I'm painting, and I'm actually painting rather than construction this time around.
Yeah,
Let's see if I can
I
get
love this horse.
a robot horse. It's very finicky and detailed and small, and I can't get it to focus, of course, because again, that should be the name of this show. Out of focus.
Can't focus.
Minis.
Out of focus. Out of focus minis.
But
Oh.
should be fun. Funny story about this, painter story, and proof that I goof up too. So there are different types of shade. There are gloss shade, washes. So there are gloss washes and there are standard washes. And I have, of course, both of them because I'm a dork of the same color. And I accidentally put a gloss wash. I have two of these horses. The partner I did with a gloss wash, and it's really shiny, and I'm very annoyed.
I love it. I think it looks great. I think it looks great.
So I have to redo the whole thing.
Or you could have a really new one and then a really old one.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we go. Okay. All right. So we've got our minis. On to the questions.
On to the questions. Okay, so Button, and I actually don't know the answer to this, so I'm excited. I think I do. I do know the answer to this, but how did you get into D&D?
I got into D&D during my undergrad. I was working at a library, and one of my fellow librarians invited me along. That was in 2013 or 14. So during my senior year of my undergrad. But it was a really wonderful experience. It was a bunch of nerds up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So it was really cold, and we had nothing to do besides winter camp and then go inside and regret our decisions. And yeah, it was just a bunch of Tolkien nerds, anime nerds, and it meshed in a really fascinating way. My first character in D&D ever got a death note. It was a mistake.
Oh,
But it was a really fun mistake.
A Death Note.
Are you familiar with the anime Death Note?
So I am familiar with I've never watched it, but I was just making sure that I understood that. So they got like somebody sent them a Death Note, or they got a book that does the Death Note thing.
They were gifted a journal that if you wrote a person's name and then if you described the way in which you wanted them to perish, they would. But they didn't tell them that's what it was. So the character wrote quite a number of names in that book because it was a journal before they realized that they shouldn't.
Oh no.
It was wild. This DM was amazing.
That's evil and incredible.
that's so evil.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
The difference between Josh and I. Josh is like, good, I'll make note of this. And I'm like, I
yes.
don't want that to ever happen to me.
Oh no, yeah. Oh gosh.
That is freaking cool. All right. So then you kind of explained how you got into D&D. What's your favorite class to play?
That is ever shifting, but right now I am playing in a friend's campaign. You said class, correct?
Yes, class.
I really like how warlocks can't stay out of trouble. It's a lot of fun for me. So right now I have a succubus, which is essentially just a glorified tiefling with charm person instead of, what do tieflings have? As that
Depends on the tiefling.
hellish rebuke.
Hellish Rebuke, I think it's the base one, yeah.
So I have a succubus warlock who is their patron is Zugetmoy. So they infect people with spores. And I really like we're at this point where Candy officially has started to feel bad about the things they're doing because they have all these thralls to Zugetmoy, and they don't quite know how to. Every warlock, not every warlock, but just that trope of trying to break the pact is just so much fun for me.
Some forward action there.
Yeah.
But you can't throw a sword into it. Spoilers.
Is
Sorry.
is Is your warlock's name Candy?
All of my characters are named after food.
Okay.
And it started because my first character, I feel like when everyone starts playing D&D, they draw from their favorite fantasy that's like impacted them the most. So I tried to recreate Bilbo kind of. And I
Oh.
made a halfling rogue named Porridge. And my thought with the rogue was to be the anti-edgelord. So they were a halfling in their like 60s. They're not wine ant, but they were like the second breakfast ant of the group.
Okay.
Got it.
And yeah, I forgot the question. I'm just ranting.
It's just no, we just went off from that, so it's totally fine.
Was it favorite
So-
class? No.
Yeah, we were on favorite class. We just did that one.
Okay.
Warlocks are really fun.
Warlocks. We've gotten that answer many times.
Yeah, a lot of people like
At
warlocks.
least twice.
I feel like if you like Warlocks best, you're probably more into RP than combat. Like, at least a little bit. And that might not be true. Like, maybe you're just really into that type of caster. And like, obviously, Hexblades are cool. I love playing Pact of the Chain. Candy has an imp named Cookie, who looks like Tinkerbell but carries around a cigarette. I can't do the voice that our DM makes for Candy or for Cookie, but it's amazing.
That's
Oh my
amazing.
gosh. So, do you have a favorite race to play?
I think my favorite is blend races. I played a half orc, half drow a while back. And blending those two cultures was really fun. I like playing with tropes. So, you know, the drow are so often cast as like these evil characters, ditto orcs. And just the idea, their parentage was their orc mother was a bodyguard for their merchant drow father, who you know, spent a lot of time above ground, unusually, like traveling to cultural hubs, because below ground, of course, it's a matriarchal society, and he didn't experience the status or anything that he wanted. But Egbert came out of that. Yes, the character's name is Egbert Benedict. I'm the worst.
I'm sorry.
Egg
My favorite
Benedict.
brunch food. It's my favorite
Egbert
brunch.
Benedict, yeah.
That's amazing.
They were kind of based off of Nathan Lane in The Birdcage, like very flamboyant, very fashionable, very much a queen. But yeah, just playing with the way that a character with parents from two different races, how that bends their worldview, I think is really interesting for me. So I don't know if I have a favorite race so much as I mean, this is why I was drawn to Genasi too, because their parents aren't, you know, the same race, or I don't know if primordials are a different species, or it's
kind of a
you could
weird-
argue that.
Yeah, it's a weird description whenever you read stuff about them.
Yeah.
For
Amazing.
sure.
Amazing. Egbert is kind of a legend.
I love that.
So okay, so you've kind of told us your favorite class to play. What class do you want to try next?
I might have mentioned this to you guys. I really want to play a barbarian druid multi-class.
Okay.
Especially, I want them to be a smaller race. I'm thinking gnome, but I just want a character who can mold earth, drop someone 5 feet on the ground, and then whack them in the head with rage. I want to play with those mechanics. And I kind of like the idea of an eco-terrorist having a barbarian and a druid background. I think it just makes a lot of sense.
I like that. I like
You know,
that.
that hostility toward society.
Fair.
Maybe, yeah. Sorry, I just got really focused. I don't know what I'm doing.
It's okay. No, that happens.
This is the beauty of this show. Is like, it's mostly us forgetting that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
And like mini painting.
Yeah.
And then tangents.
It's therapeutic.
It
It's
is.
really therapeutic. I have
So-
shaky hands.
So you like the trying out different like race mixes. But is there one that you haven't played that you want to play, or like a blend that you're thinking of that you want?
So I really want to I haven't played a human yet, funnily.
Okay.
But so maybe that. But I don't know. I like the idea. I haven't played a half elf, half orc before, and I think that would be really interesting. Or maybe along those lines, a half dwarf, half gnome. I don't know. It's fun to play with. But I'm less focused on the stats so much as the character that situation would build. Like you could do a deep gnome and a dwarf. I think I just decided that's the next character I want to build.
A deep gnome and a dwarf.
So
Yeah.
all of this talk of dwarves, I forgot a really important bit.
Oh my gosh.
I just need you to say the actual best race in Dungeons and Dragons for me. You don't have to mean it. Just need the words.
I don't mean it, but okay. The best race in D&D is dwarves. Is that what I'm supposed to say?
Yep,
That is.
Does that make
is
you
what
feel
said.
happy?
makes me feel very happy. From
Are you
Button
familiar-
themselves.
Are you familiar with Into the Woods?
I feel like I should be, but I'm not.
It's a really fun musical that deconstructs a lot of fairy tales, but there is a line in it, dwarves are very upsetting. And that's all I can think.
Yeah.
How dare! How
Play
dare!
Sondheim!
Ending stream. No, I'm kidding. Oh my gosh, how rude! How
Fury!
outrage! My heart.
Are they okay? So, question for you: are they your favorite because you identify with them? Why are they your favorite?
I'm turning it around.
How dare you, Button? So I'm kidding. I love the lore. Don't give me that look. I love everything about them. I love the aesthetic. I really like playing actually like ugly kind of, or not traditionally handsome characters. I like rugged handsome, or like verging on the like non-traditional aesthetic, you know what I mean? Like I like leaning into that. I love all dwarven lore. I think it's fantastic. I think it's very well established. I think it's critically important to most worlds lore. And beyond that, I adore... So this goes back to the trope that I play into, although you guys know that I play other characters as well, but when I tend to play, like in our streams, I play soft gruff. I love exploring that, and it speaks to me as a human being because I'm soft gruff. There's a lot of emotion, and there's a lot of like reluctance to engage with that emotion, which like
Ebb and flow.
yeah, it's a fascinating and a beautiful thing to role play, and dwarves lend themselves well to that. Not that you can't do that with any race, but as a trope, they definitely do.
You
I like that.
soft?
Me soft?
You soft?
I'd never,
I'm tough.
never imagine that.
What's
I
the name of the god in the Silmarillion? It's like Vala Alue? I can't pronounce
Remember.
I'm not
any
even
of
try.
Tolkien's language, but the one who created dwarves is really fascinating. Just like the notion of that being, I don't know, a break with tradition in some way is really fascinating to me. And just I love blacksmiths. Just as a general.
Craftsmanship is like phenomenal. Like I like that concept. It's why I've always liked forge domain clerics and artificers. Like I like craftsmanship, especially in the game as a mechanic. I think it's
One of my-
underutilized.
Thinking about your reason for liking them, one of my best friends is a blacksmith who identifies as a dwarf, not literally, but like calls himself a dwarf, and like that play with artistry and like just smashing things, like that interplay is really fascinating.
And there's again like there's so many layers. So like we haven't even discussed like grudges. Like grudges are a huge component of dwarven lore. Like the guardians of civilization, fallen empire. Like there's so many tropes with dwarves that just lend directly into the lore, and people don't, we're
This is
off
just dwarf
track.
stream now. This is just
we're off track.
dwarf stream now.
I shouldn't have done this. We're yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. I think
Enjoyed
you're up,
it.
Parker.
I think it's you.
Is it? Did I ask the?
I
class
asked the
question.
race.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yep.
So, this is a good one then. What's your least favorite class to play?
This is nothing against them because they're very cool. I just have a bad memory. I played a drunken master monk in Pathfinder. Monks, there's so much to remember, and it was my first time playing a melee character. I got so lost, and I never used any of my key points, which meant that I was really useless. I couldn't do it. And it's not, I think it's a really cool concept, and I love Pathfinder for just how specific you can get. But that was really hard. I probably won't play a monk again. That was terrible.
That
No,
bad?
that's fair.
Wow.
I was just so bad at it. Although, second time I played Pathfinder, and my second melee character was a dervish dancer, and there is nothing cooler than a melee bard. That was so much fun.
That's cool. Pathfinder is amazing to explore. It's a lot of fun. We're playing a campaign right now, and it's an absolute blast. But it is very complex. I could imagine too, like a drunken monk in Pathfinder is like 3 times the complexity of a drunken monk in D&D 5e at least.
There were so many rules.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Pathfinder
I'll try in D&D. Try anything twice.
Yeah. Because it is a lot similar. Pathfinder, chat, for those of you who have not played Pathfinder, it is an awesome game. But it is a lot more complicated. You can do a lot more with the rule sets, but there is a lot more complexity. And it's just similar enough to D&D to forget that you're not playing D&D sometimes, and then you're like, what's happening? Why am I here?
I can't do what? I can do what?
Yeah. I have 2 more actions in combat? What's going on? What's happening? Where am I?
Then you get to your enemies and you're like, they have 2 more actions?
Yep. Oh no.
Yeah. Positive.
I can do what with a spell? That's valid though. I appreciate it.
I haven't played Pathfinder since college.
That's where you started though, right, Parker? That was your first tabletop.
That was my first like real one. The one that you're thinking of that was my first TikTok was my D&D. That was a different one. That was my little elven ranger that I did as a cost test.
Oh, gotcha.
My very first TikToks were D&D TikToks.
Hey!
I'm so happy.
I just made a full circle. It just took a little longer than I expected.
Big ol' loop.
Big ol' loop.
Amazing.
Okay. So is there a race that you didn't enjoy or a race blend that didn't work out for you?
I have a cheat sheet, and I looked at it, and I didn't answer that question because it's stupid, but also probably because
Not super.
I don't think inherently there's any race that I don't want to play. Although I do find it funny. Before the stream, we were talking about how there's a trope that like every pan or bi person plays a tiefling, and I haven't. So maybe I might just say a tiefling on principle now.
You're not gonna. You're just like, nah.
Your stereotypes. It's not that I don't like playing them, but I want to see a world where drow aren't so demonized. Like I like what Critical Role was doing, and kind of playing with assumptions and stereotypes. Because they're dangerous in the way that they can carry over into thought processes about real life.
Yeah.
That's a big topic of conversation. I mean, it always has been with it has more recently with D&D, more regularly, but came up again with,
Goblins.
yeah. It's really tricky because, so I don't know, speaking from like a DM's perspective, there can be evil groups, right? And those groups may consist of a certain demographic, but you have to understand the nuance and complexity surrounding race and racial identity and ethnic identity in order to utilize those motifs. And you can't just say, like, it goes back to the old trope of, like, the grid is fine with chaotic evil and chaotic neutral and blah blah blah, but it's not that simple. Evil is subjective to some extent. Some people do bad things for good reasons, some people do good things for bad reasons. Like, so defining a society or a culture off of that, or a race, isn't
Yeah, it's the looking at a whole group as innately evil, or
mood.
I like that we're dealing with the Swagan in Conundrum Company, because xenophobia is just clearly a negative. But dealing with the lizard folk who were nervous and like who did attack us, it was nice to have, like, it was nice for me playing Peach to have a moment where they realized that the people who attacked them were people. They're not this abstract evil. Like, no, that's a person, that's their name, that's their pet. I killed them.
And watching you explore that was fantastic too. Like, you stepped up and, like, yeah. The Swagan are honestly, like, if they spoilers, Conundrum Company spoilers, Swagan are not for the players. Swagan are problematic. They're just not regularly referenced because they are also another one of those pure evil races. They are evil. They hate everybody. You need to kill them. And as a DM, you need to play them that way. And that is complicated to navigate in a inclusive and equitable way. So we'll see what that's going to be like.
Panic. I'm really pleased about the items we just got. As soon as you said that.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Thank you.
The items were good.
Yeah, they were. Cool.
I'm actually kind of proud of this handle. It's not gonna focus, is it?
Put your hand behind it. Let's see. Oh no, doesn't.
It's looking
There
good.
you go.
It's got the texture in.
There you go. Yeah.
You're killing it. I keep putting my mini down.
Well, that's okay. I've been doing the same thing, so. There.
We did just ask your question, right, Parker?
Yep.
Cool. Then, Button. Moving on from that heavy topic.
Sorry.
How'd you get into content? No, do not
Oh,
apologize.
it's a good topic.
It's a good
topic.
How did you get into content creation? Like, how did you become a content creator? Like, what got you into TikTok? Like, which is a huge space for you.
The thing that got me into TikTok was the theatrical aspect. I had just moved away from a community where I'd been kind of established in theatrical circles. And as soon as I joined TikTok because I didn't have an outlet, and then as soon as I joined, I got a new outlet. But it was still, it still became a space where I could play with fandom and, like, I do a lot of cosplay on TikTok, and I like exploring headcanons that don't get explored in the stories themselves. Like, I do a lot of present mic, who doesn't get a lot of screen time if you watch My Hero Academia. And I like there's a space where people can explore characters to greater depth, create interactions that wouldn't otherwise happen. It's just a lot of, and I like to play dress up. That too.
Valid.
That is absolutely
Fully valid. Every single one of us on this stream plays dress up, so.
That's true.
And you're so good at it. Oh my goodness.
Isn't
No.
That's why we're all friends, right? It's cosplay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, you're
crazy.
Caleb.
Yep.
Flew on
Did
the
we-
scene and I cried.
Excuse me, sleeveless bow. Like, come on.
My
Full regard.
you know, I've already told you.
You're-
My favorite character from Critical Role is Caleb. So in turn, I went and found all the Caleb cosplayers, cosplayed Jester, who eventually became a romantic interest of sorts, and was like, bring them to me.
Gimme.
The same thing, I cosplayed Julia Burnsides because she's so important to Magnus, and Magnus is my favorite character.
You
So
two do so many of those duets that I get so emotional.
I still have a bunch of them. I still have a bunch of duets. I have like probably 10 duets with Josh just sitting in my draft somewhere.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
So it is fun. But yeah, and then I found Button through the Hogwarts Professor's tag forever ago.
Yeah, another Demi.
Another dummy. Another dummy for another time. And then she died as a character, and I decided to bring back her namesake as a bard. And you know what? I like this one better.
Oh,
Recycle some names,
There-
guys.
there are some similarities to their musical backgrounds, and
Yep. I just took her and put her in D&D.
love it.
I
love Demi so much.
I have to draw attention to the chat really quick because somebody asked, does Morton play dress up? And someone responded, I think he cosplayed Josh once.
I think he cosplayed Josh. It's true, we all cosplayed Josh once.
Also,
doing it
Morton
right
cosplayed
now.
Demi.
That's true.
True.
Oh my gosh,
did.
that's very true.
He did.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
We should get Sean to cosplay Demi if you won't cosplay Morton.
I will put Sean in my. He doesn't seem to understand that if he refuses to do it before we meet in person, that the first meeting is me gonna be like, go put this on. Be
There
back
you
here in a
go.
second. I'm gonna do your makeup.
You just show up with
You
a
don't
bag of
have an
stuff.
option. Yeah, it's gonna be me with like a backpack full of cosplay. Just like, hey guys, I'm here. We can do this, but after.
The easy way or the hard way?
Oh yeah, no.
Our good friend Martin in the chat just confirmed that Sean secretly wants to cosplay, and
I know.
I trust Martin inherently, so now we have to convince him.
Let's be really
Now it's our
serious.
responsibility to make him do it.
Speaking of
That's what he's
Conundrum Company cosplay, though, guess who else is doing their cosplay?
Is Adam?
Adam?
No, I'm talking about you.
Oh, I'm dumb.
Oh!
Yeah. I just have to figure out how to make granity, mossy skin, because my first attempt was a failure.
That's a hard color to start with, though, if you've never body painted.
I did this to myself.
Gray is a hard color to start with. I cheated and went, just a slightly different blue.
Oh, it looks so good.
Jester. We
So
can get on
do-
a video chat and do it sometime.
That would be really nice.
Yeah.
I'm not
'Cause
gonna
I'm
cosplay
hopeless.
John. Chat. Sorry, please continue.
Maybe you should, though.
No, I'm not going to do that.
But
It's fine. What?
do it.
Do it.
Oh my god.
If I figure out how to cosplay Peach, then the next thing will be not.
Do it.
Yeah,
It's my
yeah.
favorite.
And then I'm just gonna let the entire chat know that Peach, or sorry, I just called you your character's name. Button at one point said that they would cosplay Oceanus, and I'm never ever letting them forget that.
Yes.
No!
Now that
Yes,
everybody's
yes.
super
Ah!
emotionally attached to that pretty boy,
Button would knock
I have to work
Oceanus out of
out.
the park.
right? Right?
They would. That'd be
Right?
so good. That'd be so good.
I'd really.
Everybody in the Discord was talking about them earlier today, Oceanus and Demi, and I was like, oh, this is cute. And I was like, what would their ship name be? And then I was like, oh, it's so easy. It's Ocean Waters. It's so easy.
I chip it! Oh,
I was like,
oh
haha.
goodness.
So easy.
Lord.
You brought this upon yourself.
You guys are amazing.
You picked the
Oh my God.
prettiest sea elf picture in all of Google Photos.
Yeah, he did that for me. Josh is a real bro.
I got you, buddy. I got you, bro.
Josh is a real bro. I was like, where are all the hot NPCs?
Yeah,
It's just too many comments in the first couple sessions of me being like, man, Zal's flirting with everything, but Debbie doesn't think that there's anybody attractive yet. So Josh is like, ha. Like,
Here you go.
have the
Have them.
hottest sea elf.
Who's old.
Ah, man, yeah, it sucks.
That's a weird meta level of wingman, and that I'm not entirely sure.
Meta wingman!
I'm a fan.
You want to talk about meta wingman? I didn't even think about them being cute or a couple before Button was like, so I'm really thinking Oceanus, and I was like, you don't even know how hot he is. Hold on, let me show you. Let me show you this picture. I was like, let me show you this picture of him because valid.
Oh my
Valid.
God.
Okay, sorry. We'll get back to comments now that we've talked about our campaign.
I think we're on our last question. So once we finish this question, chat, we would love to hear your questions. The easiest way for us to catch them in chat is if you highlight them. So if you're able to do that, if not, we'll try and find the ones that aren't highlighted. So think up some good questions for Button.
Okay,
and send them our way.
so our very last question for you, Button. What's your perspective on LGBTQ plus representation in D&D? We wanted to ask you, and you know, it's Pride Month. Happy Pride Month, everyone.
Happy
I know the
Pride
world's
Month.
crazy
Pride
right
Month.
now, but happy Pride.
That's true.
Like, so it's so with sexuality and with gender. I think it can be really easy for DMs and for players to fall into defaults. If you were to hear the DM introduce a character like, oh, this is, if they said this is the ambassador and they give you a strange name that doesn't necessarily automatically have a gender, but let's say there's a gruff voice, it might be really easy for someone to assume, oh, well, I tell him blah 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 blah, when that character might not be a man. I actually noticed you, Parker, do something really awesome in our last session, when I don't know if Josh gave us pronouns, but the Docs Master,
Mm-hmm.
Demi had this moment where she was like, where she realized that she didn't know the person's gender for sure.
Yeah.
And she caught herself. Like she was like, actually, I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't ask. My bad.
He was.
No,
they,
it's
were,
really
they were
cool.
weird. He wasn't he in that instance, but
Yeah.
he was definitely weird. There wasn't a lot of like indicator
Yeah,
either way.
like there was no. I don't think you did, and so I think it was Zal asked. Zal was like, oh, like, and then he was like, oh wait, I don't want to assume like that it was a guy. Then he was like, well, yeah, no, I didn't ask. I don't know. I think she said like they. I was like, but yeah, I do remember that.
I got stupidly emotional and like happy about it. I was like, I'm just kidding.
Aww. I think it's great that you brought, and obviously don't let me interrupt you answering this question, but I think it's great that you brought a non-binary character into D&D because a lot of people don't do that because with voices and characterization, it can be so difficult with handling RP and other things to do that.
Well, and I think the only way to change that is to keep doing it, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, this is a fantasy world where there are hundreds of races. Like, gender is limitless, sexuality is limitless, preferences are limitless in this world. It doesn't. A lot of times when, like, I see, and it's all in good fun. I understand where it comes from, but like, a character. So often I see, like, you know, the tropey bard who wants to seduce someone. There's like that haha moment where they realize that person's gender or sexuality isn't what they thought, and it's kind of used as humor. But you know, this is like a person's identity, and if that attraction was there, then there's like a degree of shaming a person for feeling that attraction, that I just see on a lot of streams. That's a pitfall that I think everyone can just not fall into. Or
Yeah.
if there is a character who, has, you know, maybe isn't as progressive, like exploring that socially. And granted, we stream for an audience. Like, Peach has never been purposefully, intentionally misgendered, and I think that that's good, because I think it could be really easy to trigger someone watching. But I think if you're playing, just like with a small group of people, if everyone has discussed it, and is comfortable with it, it can be really, really cathartic and rewarding to explore prejudice
Yeah.
using D&D.
It's such...
Ooh, buddy, if that ever happened in game on Peach. Ooh, buddy.
It's such a, it's such a learning experience for me, having the privilege to DM you and Peach, because we all have our own failings or ignorances or blind spots. And first session, I think I, as a DM, misgendered Peach like 3 times. And you treat it with grace and were very kind about it, as you always are, Button. But it's been an opportunity for me to immerse myself more, even in those small instances and interactions, to help me grow as an individual as well. So I appreciate that opportunity. But even this conversation, like listening to you discussing, like I hadn't even considered then. Like I put it in my don't touch box, and I have a don't address these issues box, right? Especially on
That's
a live
valid.
stream where you parse things
Yes.
out and you decide, because you don't want to trigger people with certain topics, and there are things, we've discussed this before, that you shouldn't discuss. But when is it appropriate to engage that, right? And that's something that I have to think on, because that's fascinating.
And it's got to be hardest for the DM. Like, it really does, approaching those perspectives.
I don't know about that.
I've never I've never had, especially in front of a live, like on a live stream, just where you don't know precisely who is in your audience, because you don't want to perpetuate stereotypes, but you also want to be conscientious about people who, if you address those things, might be hurt by it, if it were to go to a certain way.
Yeah.
No, I decided that I don't play a lot of melee characters, and I wanted a really just physically engaged character who experiences no dysphoria. As a result, Peach is a little dumb, but it's really freeing.
I love Peach.
That's amazing. Oh my god. Well, it's such a broad, deep topic too. I mean,
Yeah.
It's a really broad topic. Like with sexuality, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I almost always play pan characters because mentally I don't think about it. I just kind of give the character my sexuality, and I'm like, all right, if someone seems interesting to your character, like a little bit of like my brain still in the character, like Nash. That's just Button going, like, I really like the nose piercing.
Yeah,
I poked fun at you, I'm sorry.
No, no, it's good. But I think it's important to have those characters. Yeah, just to have non-binary and trans characters populating your world, to have characters whose sexualities aren't het populating your world, and whether or not that is whether or not that's looked down upon or not is kind of up to the DM or at their discretion. And of course, it also would probably vary from character to character, but I think it's important for that to exist in the world. Like, you had a prison guard who was non-binary a couple episodes ago, and that, like, it got me all choked up. It's, again, just seeing yourself represented
When you and I had this conversation, because it's very interesting, one of the struggles from a DM's perspective is you populate these individuals in your world who are diverse, but you can't. You can make their diversity who they are, but you also don't want to constantly do that, or like readdressing the tropes, like just making a character camp because that's the easy way to project that specific individual. That's not fair.
Here is queerness.
Yeah.
Here's queer. just a big here's queer sign in our D&D world.
That's not the way the world works, and that's not the way human beings work, or in D&D's case, dwarves and elves and lizard folk and swaggin work. So it's fascinating to try and figure that out.
Oh, that really. I changed one of my answers. I really want to play a queer dwarf. I think that would be really fun to play with at some point. Just because they seem to have, I mean, elves too, but theirs is just inherently softer. I like the idea of coming from a very gruff society of, artisans and lay people and having that experience.
Can you imagine? And tradition, and they lay things heavily on family, and God, there's a lot to explore there. That would be fascinating.
Yep.
Ditto for drow. To play a trans woman who is a drow would be in a matriarchal society would be wild.
Boom. Yeah.
Mind blown. That's brilliant. Sorry.
I have things on my list. No, I just have a list
things.
of characters I want to play, and I'm really glad I paid for D&D Beyond because I have so many things I need to draw up now.
Oh my god. Okay. Chat question time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. The first one is me being trolled, I think, but the second one is
but it's a good troll.
It is a good troll.
It's a good troll and also a good thing for you to remember, Josh.
Yeah. Okay.
Just
thanks.
don't touch Oceanus.
Yeti's got your back,
don't
Parker.
touch him.
Yeah.
Thank you. No one touch him. We're
Leave
just
him
drawing an
alone.
emotional connection to him. He's already been through a lot.
He's
Look
the
what you did. He
prettiest
has
of us all.
anxiety. Like a
We
perfectly
need
good
him.
sea elf and gave it anxiety.
And trauma, PTSD.
So much
Layers of
PTSD.
it too. It just.
Oh, man.
Shrek. Okay, so what is your favorite moment from any TTRPG that you've played? What is the moment that just stands
Oof.
out?
It's really hard. It's hard to pick favorites. So instead of picking favorites, I'm gonna pick one of them that came to mind first. So my first group, there were a lot of chaos gremlins. And we had gathered up all of these very strange items. At one point, we killed a cockatrice that had frozen our friend, so we chopped off his mustache while he was, solidified in rock. But our rogue extracted the cockatrice venom and rolled high enough that he ended up getting a vial of it. And then our final battle against the big bad boss, final boss, I also had filled a bag of holding 100% full of manure. Those are two things we did.
Whoa,
So-
that is a lot of manure.
It's a lot of manure. So Porridge had spider climb. They climbed up onto the ceiling. There were these casters controlling two worms, two small dragons. Porridge opened the bag of holding over the first one's head, and the rogue, and during their turn, had an arrow dipped with the cockatrice venom and stabbed the second worm while it was over the other caster, and we got them in one turn. And just the imagery, and our friend ended up drawing it, was so epic but stupid that it really encompasses what a lot of D&D is to me. Just the interplay of the epic with the absurd, and there's so much humor. So I don't know if it's
Can we get that artwork in the Twee sub Discord?
Right, can we find that?
I'll get a hold of Austin. I'll see what happened to it.
Okay, I would have seen it so bad. Oh my gosh, that is epic.
It was a really fun conclusion.
I like it. Your summary of D&D, epically stupid. Like, that should be the tagline.
It's both.
Stupid.
It's great to see high fantasy play with contemporary humor, and just see what comes out of that. It's a lot of situations that you feel like Terry Pratchett may have written.
That's true. Yeah. So,
okay.
Vault's got a good question in here, and that's one of their go-tos. You want me to read it?
Yes.
Sure.
Please.
You all know what I'm gonna... Well, sorry, now I'm just literally reading it. If you could use any monster as a PC, what would you choose and why?
So, I'm going to say, I'm going to talk about the character who I'm playing right now. My Succubus. I find agency really compelling, and to play a character who's been told to fit a certain role is really fascinating to me, and fun to play with. And Candy, my Succubus Warlock, became a Warlock because they didn't want to be a Succubus. So they ended up ceding control to another entity to gain power and leave the demon for whom they were created. And they use Zugetmoy's it's a demon with fungi powers, essentially. And Candy uses collecting thralls for Zugetmoy as a means of just regaining some sort of control, not just over themselves, but over others. And it's something that's really fun to play because those thralls still have personalities. And so Candy's been getting to know them and feeling remorse, and realizing that they're putting people in the same scenarios that they were in, that they desperately wanted to escape from. And I really like having that reckoning. And now they're in a bind, obviously, because they don't want to do it anymore. But they have quotas, and it'll be pretty obvious if they stop meeting them. It's really fun.
That's amazing.
Sounds fun.
Vault wants to hear our answers to this as well, Parker. So what's your answer? Monster that you want to play. And if you want a minute, I can answer while you think this through.
You go ahead.
I can't answer this question because a few of the people I play with in this campaign are in our chat. But I am, technically speaking, playing a monster from the Monster Manual that I think is very fun to explore. But nobody else knows that. And I can't tell you any more than that because spoilers for them.
I'm scared.
Vague, obtuse. It's none of you guys here, but there's some folks watching who might get campaign stuff spoiled. This is offline stuff that we play.
I don't feel like I know enough of the Monster Manual to answer this for sure, but I kind of want to be a pseudo dragon in a one shot, and that's what I want to be.
Okay,
with like 7 hit points?
Because I think it would be really, really fun to have to do the whole psychic link thing for an entire session.
Oh.
That would be cool.
Have you read The Name of the Wind?
Yes.
You know the part where he's describing, he's right after very sad things happened, and he's playing music. The way he describes music, like,
Yep.
That's all I can. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to spoil.
No,
things.
it's okay.
So
imagine-
kenkus are somewhat like this too. Like,
Yeah.
playing a
Yep.
kenku, like articulating through like audible iconography is very interesting. It's also incredibly annoying sometimes, but it's really cool to like roleplay that as well.
A Kenku bard would be wild.
It would just
just
be.
to-
It would just essentially be a record player.
Well, but the intermingling of concepts and voices, and just seeing a bard restructure their thoughts using only the words that they've ever audibly heard would be so fascinating, especially depending on where they came from.
You know when
like-
you used to cut, like, I don't know if anybody else had to do this for projects in school, but where you had to cut out words from magazines to make a thing, it would be like what that sounds like,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
which would be cool.
It's so much fun to watch a party then make that into reality. So like I played a kenku and its name was Bubbles, but it just was the sound of bubbles. It would just open its mouth and it would make the sound of bubbles. And so they named it Bubbles, and it was referred to as Bubbles, but like the word bubbles spoken in English from then on. Just like little nuance like things like that. I love that in roleplay. It's the best. Bubbles is a good name too, like the sound.
Bubbles is a really satisfying name.
It is.
Can you make their name?
Can you make that
its
sound?
name?
I don't know if I can. No, I can't. I can't do it. I don't think so. I don't think I ever did it too. I think I roleplayed it as like, it makes the sound of bubbles. It's like a popping like.
I was getting a much more
soap-
gentle sound. Like,
Okay, yeah, like a.
Mm. yeah.
I like that. That's cute.
Adorable. Okay. Okay. Ooh, this is JJ asking, which character have you played that you have become most attached to? And I think we should open this up to like your OCs too in TikTok
Yeah,
and other spaces.
Yeah.
I was about to say, JJ has asked me this privately. That's a really hard one. Because I feel like there's a little bit of self-runoff into almost every character that I end up creating. I think it's almost inevitable. You know, you only live from your perspective. And in as much as creating an OC is an exercise in empathy, you still have a certain amount of your perspective that is just going to bleed into that character. And I think I've created OCs who I most identify with at different points in my life. Like Professor Mew from the Hogwarts tag is very much young me. And going through, struggles that are, a decade behind me now.
I was about to say I grew mildly concerned as you said that. It's too much
Yeah,
angst.
I don't like it. But character most like myself right now is an OC that I'm writing and occasionally making TikToks for in the Pirates Legend tag. Their name is Olive Owens, and they are I
love Olive.
They were my solution to. No, I appreciate it. They were my solution to how powerless but also determined I was feeling. I created them in we live in a politically entrenched time, and the universe in Pirates Legend has these invading powerful creatures against whom only the pirates are fighting. So I ended up creating a character who, doesn't have any like magical or fantastical ability, although they just got one. But initially they were just running around with a frying pan, this little cook, and kicking butt and talking to fascists about how their fascism is wrong. It's a really fun outlet. But just creating them to remind myself of the agency I have, even if not everything is under my control, has been really satisfying.
Wow, that's an awesome answer. I think we got time for one more question, pushing it over a little bit, but I really want to ask this question. Azur asked, do you think prejudice and allowing space to fight against it in a game is something to be included? And then there is a second part, which is, or should we do our best to rather create a better environment? Or is that something that has a space, time, or place to engage in a game? Like, what are your thoughts regarding exploring that?
I think that is a really good question.
Sorry.
No, you're good. It's an awesome question. And I think the answer varies. I'm inclined to say both. I'm inclined to say that as long as that prejudice is approached with the clear understanding, if we clearly convey that that prejudice is wrong, I think that it can have a space in the world of D&D. And again, I think that it has to be handled really delicately, especially when you are streaming to people who might feel that stuff in their bones. The audience matters. But by the same token, the audience matters. And if you have had those experiences, seeing a character overcome something could be vastly validating. And could also be a really good example to people who may have not thought about it before. And I think by addressing those prejudices as inherently wrong, you are fostering a tolerant space, a space of understanding. So, that was a really great question, and I think the answer is both.
That's an awesome answer.
Yeah.
Oof. All right. Well, on that note, we're gonna show what I did. I made no headway on my mini, by the way. I was so engaged in the conversation. Yeah,
I barely did.
But we'll show our minis and then maybe close out. I'll go first this time. Look, you can see for shame, I got some red on it.
Ooh.
That's about it. Some of the armor plating is in place.
Looks really good.
Oh my
goodness.
I should have taken the finished one and just been like, oh yeah, I got this done in 30 minutes. But it's
look at what I did.
Yeah, boom.
Look at what I did.
Cheated. Oh. What'd you get? Where'd you get to, Parker?
Looks like that.
You did a lot. Oh my gosh.
Well, I had started on this last time, but I got like the rest of the base done.
Good.
So.
Oh my goodness.
All right, buddy.
I did the shovel and I stopped.
I mean, the shovel looks really good though.
I love it though. It actually
looks really
like it has
good.
dirt built up on it a little bit too.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cause they're a mess. I've decided.
This bones person.
I think they just picked up a shovel. I think that this isn't their intended weapon. It's just there.
It's just there.
What is the
They're a
nearest
tavern brawler. What?
Oh my gosh. What is the nearest bludgeoning apparatus? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody who hung out with us. Stayed with us. Button. Thank you again for this amazing talk and conversation.
Yeah.
Dialogue. Bye, everybody.
Oh my goodness. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by.